My beloved child, there is a story unfolding behind the scenes that you were never supposed to know. A story so unexpected, so surprising, and so deeply connected to your life that when the truth finally reaches your ears, you may look back at everything differently. Before we go any further, don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What you are about to hear is not an ordinary message. It is a revelation about someone who has been carrying thoughts, questions, and emotions they could no longer keep hidden. For a long time, this person tried to understand what they felt whenever your name crossed their mind. They tried to ignore it. They tried to explain it away. They tried to convince themselves that what they were experiencing was temporary. Yet every time they stepped away, something seemed to pull them back. Every memory returned. Every conversation echoed in their heart. Every detail connected them to you again. And then, one day, they made a decision they never expected to make. They took your photo with them. Not because they were certain about what they felt. Not because they had all the answers. But because they desperately wanted clarity. They wanted someone to help them understand why your presence had such a powerful effect on their emotions. They wanted to know why, despite time passing, despite distractions, despite all their efforts to move forward, your image remained in their thoughts. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The moment they placed your photo down, something shifted. Suddenly, questions they had carried for months seemed closer to being answered. Their heart was racing. Their mind was filled with anticipation. Part of them expected to hear something ordinary. Part of them expected a simple explanation. But what happened next was far from ordinary. The first thing they heard caught them completely off guard. It was not what they expected. It was not what they had prepared themselves for. The words touched a place deep inside them, a place they had tried to keep hidden even from themselves. In that moment, memories began flooding back. They remembered small details about you that they thought they had forgotten. They remembered moments that once seemed insignificant but suddenly felt meaningful. They remembered the times they smiled because of you. They remembered the times they wondered about you. They remembered the moments when your presence made their world feel a little brighter. And as those memories resurfaced, they could no longer deny what had been happening inside their heart. What they heard forced them to see things differently. It forced them to look beyond their fears, beyond their doubts, and beyond the walls they had carefully built around their emotions. Suddenly, they realized that many of the feelings they had been avoiding were real. Very real. But this is only the beginning. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As they listened further, another realization began to emerge. They started connecting dots that had never made sense before. They began understanding why certain events happened the way they did. Why certain encounters felt unforgettable. Why certain emotions refused to disappear. What seemed random was beginning to look meaningful. What seemed confusing was beginning to make sense. Their perspective was changing right before their eyes. And the more they listened, the more impossible it became to return to the person they were before that moment. Because once certain truths are heard, they cannot be unheard. Once certain realizations arrive, they cannot simply be ignored. Deep down, they knew something significant was taking place. They knew they were standing at the edge of a discovery that could change everything. The most surprising part was not the information itself. The most surprising part was how strongly it resonated with their heart. It felt familiar. It felt personal. It felt like an answer to questions they had been carrying for much longer than they realized. And suddenly, the feelings they once questioned began growing stronger. Much stronger. Every doubt lost a little power. Every uncertainty faded a little more. Every emotional wall developed another crack. What they heard did not create new feelings. It revealed feelings that were already there. Feelings that had been waiting patiently beneath the surface. Feelings that had been hidden beneath caution, hesitation, and fear. Now those feelings were beginning to rise. And with each passing moment, they became harder to ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because what happened after that was even more surprising. Instead of leaving with fewer emotions, they left with more. Instead of feeling detached, they felt connected. Instead of moving further away from thoughts of you, they found themselves thinking about you more than ever before. Questions turned into curiosity. Curiosity turned into reflection. Reflection turned into understanding. And understanding began transforming the way they viewed you. The image they once carried in their mind was changing. It was becoming deeper, clearer, and more meaningful. They started noticing things about you they had overlooked. They started appreciating qualities they once took for granted. They started recognizing the impact you had made on their life. An impact far greater than they ever admitted. And as these realizations continued growing, a new feeling emerged. Hope. A quiet but powerful hope that perhaps there was more to this connection than they originally believed. A hope that perhaps the story between you was not finished. A hope that perhaps some things happen for reasons that are only understood later. This hope did not appear overnight. It emerged gradually, growing stronger with every thought, every memory, and every realization. And now, as they look back, they cannot deny how much that experience affected them. They cannot deny that something shifted inside them. They cannot deny that their feelings changed in a way they never expected. But the biggest revelation of all has not yet been revealed. It is waiting ahead. So don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the truth they discovered next would become impossible to forget, and once it reached their heart, nothing felt quite the same again. I need you to focus now, because what happened next was the moment everything began to change. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person who carried your photo into that reading expected a few simple answers. They expected vague words, ordinary observations, and perhaps nothing that would truly stay with them. But instead, they found themselves sitting in complete silence as one revelation after another began unfolding before them. What they heard was so unexpected that they could not stop thinking about it afterward. Even when they walked away, those words followed them. Even when they tried to focus on other things, those words kept returning. And the reason was simple. For the first time, they felt as though someone had described emotions they themselves had never been able to put into words. As they listened, they began remembering a specific moment connected to you. A moment they had dismissed as insignificant. A moment they thought was just another ordinary day. Yet suddenly that memory felt different. It felt important. It felt as though it carried meaning they had completely overlooked. And then another memory appeared. Then another. Then another. Before long, their mind was filled with scenes involving you. Small conversations. Shared smiles. Unexpected encounters. Little details that should have been forgotten long ago. Yet somehow, those memories remained crystal clear. Why? That was the question they could no longer ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the answer they received changed everything. They were told that some connections leave a lasting impression for a reason. Not every person enters your life and remains in your thoughts long after they are gone. Not every face continues appearing in your mind without explanation. Not every name creates a reaction inside your heart every time you hear it. Yet your name did exactly that. Your presence did exactly that. And suddenly they began realizing that the effect you had on them was far greater than they ever admitted. For months, maybe even longer, they convinced themselves that their thoughts about you would eventually fade. They believed time would create distance. They believed new experiences would replace old emotions. Yet none of that happened. Instead, every attempt to move forward seemed to bring them back to the same place. Back to the same questions. Back to the same memories. Back to thoughts of you. And what they heard during that reading forced them to stop pretending otherwise. The most shocking part was not what was said. The most shocking part was how deeply those words resonated with their heart. It felt as though someone had opened a door they had kept locked for a very long time. Behind that door were emotions they rarely allowed themselves to acknowledge. Emotions they carefully hid behind logic and caution. But now those emotions were stepping into the light. One by one. Slowly but surely. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because what happened next caught them completely off guard. As the conversation continued, they began hearing things that reflected their private thoughts. Thoughts they had never shared with anyone. Questions they had never spoken aloud. Feelings they had barely admitted to themselves. And each time another piece fell into place, their expression changed. Their understanding changed. Their perspective changed. Suddenly, they started wondering if they had misunderstood this connection from the beginning. What if the feelings they experienced were not random? What if the reason they kept thinking about you was not simply coincidence? What if the emotional pull they felt whenever your name appeared was trying to tell them something important? These questions became impossible to ignore. They followed them everywhere afterward. Days passed, yet the impact remained. Weeks passed, yet the thoughts continued. In fact, the more time went by, the stronger those realizations became. Instead of forgetting what they heard, they replayed it repeatedly. They examined every word, every detail, every possibility. And the deeper they reflected, the more they realized something extraordinary. Their feelings toward you had changed forever. The person who walked into that reading was not the same person who walked out. Before, they had uncertainty. Now they had clarity. Before, they had hesitation. Now they had understanding. Before, they questioned whether their emotions mattered. Now they knew those emotions were impossible to dismiss. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next realization was even more powerful. They began seeing signs of your influence everywhere. A song reminded them of you. A familiar place reminded them of you. A conversation unexpectedly brought your name into their thoughts. It felt as though life itself kept directing their attention back toward the same person. Back toward you. At first, they resisted it. They tried to focus elsewhere. They tried to convince themselves that they were overthinking things. But every attempt only made the truth clearer. The connection remained. The curiosity remained. The feelings remained. And perhaps most importantly, the desire to understand you remained. Then one evening, while reflecting on everything they had heard, a realization arrived that stopped them completely. They recognized that whenever they imagined a happier future, your presence somehow appeared in that vision. Whenever they thought about meaningful connections, your image surfaced. Whenever they wondered about possibilities they once ignored, your name appeared at the center of those possibilities. That realization shook them in the best possible way. Because suddenly they understood something they had been missing all along. Their feelings were not becoming weaker. They were becoming stronger. Much stronger. And that is where this story takes another unexpected turn. Because after accepting these truths, they made a silent promise to themselves. A promise that they would stop running from what they felt. A promise that they would stop ignoring the questions in their heart. A promise that they would finally face the emotions they had avoided for so long. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because in the next part, a revelation emerges that they never saw coming, a realization so surprising, so unforgettable, and so deeply connected to you that it changes the entire meaning of everything they thought they knew. The biggest discovery is still ahead, and once it appears, nothing will ever look quite the same again. I need you to stay focused for this next part, because this is where the story becomes even more surprising. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. After everything they heard, after all the thoughts that filled their mind, and after all the emotions they could no longer ignore, they reached a moment of complete reflection. It was quiet. No one else was around. There were no distractions. Just them, their memories, and the realization that something inside them had permanently changed. They sat there replaying every detail of the experience, trying to understand why it felt so important. But the more they thought about it, the clearer it became. This was never just about answers. It was about awakening feelings that had been waiting beneath the surface for a very long time. As they reflected, they remembered something that suddenly seemed impossible to ignore. There had been countless opportunities to forget about you. Countless chances to move on. Countless moments when life could have carried them in a completely different direction. Yet somehow, your memory remained. Through changing seasons. Through new experiences. Through busy days and quiet nights. Your presence continued to occupy a place in their thoughts. At first they called it coincidence. Later they called it curiosity. But now they were beginning to call it something else entirely. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next realization arrived unexpectedly. It happened while they were looking at your photo again. The same photo they had taken with them. They stared at it longer than they ever had before. And for the first time, they stopped looking at the image itself and started thinking about the person behind it. They thought about your strengths. They thought about your kindness. They thought about the energy you brought into their life. They thought about the moments that felt ordinary at the time but now seemed incredibly meaningful. The more they reflected, the more one truth became impossible to escape. Their feelings were no longer based on assumptions. They were based on genuine appreciation. Genuine admiration. Genuine connection. And that realization hit them harder than they expected. Because real feelings have a way of growing quietly. They do not always announce themselves. Sometimes they develop in silence until one day they become impossible to ignore. What surprised them most was how much they had underestimated the impact you made on their life. They thought they understood the connection. They thought they had measured its importance correctly. But they were wrong. The connection was deeper. Stronger. More significant than they ever realized. Suddenly, moments they once overlooked became precious memories. Conversations they barely remembered became meaningful. Tiny details they thought were insignificant suddenly carried enormous emotional weight. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because what happened next completely transformed the way they saw the future. For the first time in a very long time, they allowed themselves to imagine possibilities they had previously avoided. Possibilities involving understanding. Possibilities involving honesty. Possibilities involving a connection that deserved more attention than they had been giving it. As these thoughts continued growing, they noticed something unusual. Every time they imagined moving forward without you in their thoughts, something felt incomplete. Something felt missing. But whenever they imagined a future where they finally understood this connection, everything felt brighter. Everything felt more meaningful. It was a realization that caught them completely off guard. They started asking themselves difficult questions. Why had they spent so much time pretending these emotions were temporary? Why had they convinced themselves that these thoughts would eventually disappear? Why had they been so determined to ignore what their heart was trying to tell them? The answers were not easy. But one thing became clear. The more honest they became with themselves, the stronger their feelings appeared. Then another unforgettable realization arrived. They understood that some people leave impressions that last a lifetime. Not because of dramatic events. Not because of extraordinary circumstances. But because of the way they make you feel. The way they inspire you. The way they remain in your thoughts long after conversations end. And when they thought about those qualities, one person stood out above everyone else. You. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the story did not end there. In fact, it was only beginning. As the days continued, they found themselves noticing reminders of you everywhere. A familiar phrase reminded them of something you once said. A place reminded them of a memory involving you. A random thought brought your face into their mind without warning. No matter where they looked, pieces of the connection seemed to follow them. What amazed them most was that these reminders never felt forced. They appeared naturally. Effortlessly. As though life itself kept encouraging them to pay attention. And the more they paid attention, the clearer the message became. They could no longer deny the importance of what they felt. At that point, something shifted permanently. The uncertainty that once controlled their thoughts began disappearing. In its place came determination. Determination to understand what this connection truly meant. Determination to stop hiding from their emotions. Determination to stop pretending that you were just another chapter in their story. Because deep inside, they knew that was not true. You had become unforgettable. And that realization changed everything. Now every memory carried more meaning. Every thought carried more emotion. Every possibility carried more hope. What once seemed confusing was becoming clear. What once seemed distant was beginning to feel close. And what once seemed uncertain was starting to reveal its true significance. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the biggest revelation is still ahead. There is one final discovery they have not fully understood yet. One truth that continues growing stronger every day. One realization connected directly to you that they never expected to uncover. And when that realization finally reaches its full power, it will explain why they could never truly forget you, why your photo remained so important, and why their feelings transformed in a way that will stay with them forever. The next part reveals that extraordinary truth. I need your full attention now, because this is the part where everything begins coming together. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person who carried your photo searching for answers believed they would leave with information. Instead, they left with transformation. Days had passed since that experience, yet the words they heard continued echoing through their thoughts. Every morning brought new understanding. Every quiet moment revealed another layer of truth. What once seemed confusing was becoming crystal clear. What once felt uncertain was now impossible to ignore. They began noticing something remarkable. The more they reflected on you, the more they understood how deeply you had influenced their journey. Not through dramatic events. Not through extraordinary circumstances. But through something much more powerful. Through consistency. Through presence. Through a connection that quietly grew stronger while they were busy trying to explain it away. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because one evening, while looking through old memories, they discovered something that stopped them completely. They realized that some of their happiest moments unexpectedly involved thoughts of you. Some of their brightest memories carried your presence. Some of the moments they treasured most were connected to conversations, encounters, and experiences they shared with you. This realization did not arrive all at once. It unfolded slowly, piece by piece, until a larger picture finally emerged. For so long, they believed feelings were supposed to arrive dramatically. They believed important connections announced themselves loudly. But now they understood something different. Sometimes the strongest feelings arrive quietly. Sometimes the deepest connections grow without anyone noticing. Sometimes what matters most is discovered only after enough time has passed to reveal its true value. That realization changed everything. Suddenly, they were no longer focused on what they feared. They were focused on what they felt. And what they felt continued growing stronger with every passing day. They could not deny it anymore. They could not explain it away anymore. They could not pretend it was temporary anymore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then came the moment that truly surprised them. While reflecting on everything they had heard, they asked themselves a simple question. If this connection meant so little, why had it remained so important for so long? Why had your memory survived countless distractions? Why had thoughts of you continued appearing no matter how much time passed? The answer arrived quietly, but when it arrived, it changed everything. Because deep down, they already knew. You mattered. More than they admitted. More than they expected. More than they ever planned. And once they accepted that truth, something extraordinary happened. The resistance disappeared. The uncertainty weakened. The confusion faded. In its place came clarity. A powerful clarity that allowed them to see the connection from a completely new perspective. They stopped looking at what could go wrong. They started appreciating what already existed. They stopped focusing on distance. They started focusing on meaning. They stopped questioning every emotion. They started trusting what their heart had been trying to tell them. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As these realizations continued growing, another discovery emerged. They began noticing how often they compared other people to you. Without realizing it, they had been measuring new connections against the feelings they experienced whenever they thought about you. And no matter how hard they tried, the comparison always led back to the same conclusion. There was something uniquely special about you. Something difficult to explain. Something impossible to replace. Something unforgettable. This realization did not make them feel fearful. It made them feel grateful. Grateful that someone could leave such a lasting impact. Grateful that certain memories remained meaningful. Grateful that some connections continue shining long after they begin. And then came perhaps the most surprising realization of all. The photo they carried was never really about the photo. It was about understanding the emotions connected to it. It was about understanding why your image carried significance. It was about understanding why thoughts of you kept returning. It was about understanding why your presence felt different from everyone else's. And finally, they understood. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The answers they searched for outside themselves ultimately led them back inside their own heart. And there, waiting patiently the entire time, was the truth they had been avoiding. They cared. Deeply. Genuinely. Sincerely. More than they ever admitted. Every memory now carried greater meaning. Every thought now carried greater emotion. Every possibility now carried greater hope. The story was no longer about confusion. It was about understanding. It was no longer about uncertainty. It was about clarity. It was no longer about searching. It was about discovering what had been there all along. And just when they believed they had uncovered every answer, one final realization appeared. A realization so powerful that it connected every moment, every memory, every feeling, and every question into a single truth. The connection was never fading. It was evolving. Growing. Deepening. Becoming impossible to ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the final chapter is still ahead. The most important revelation has not yet been spoken. There is one last discovery that explains why your photo remained unforgettable, why your presence continued returning to their thoughts, and why their feelings transformed in ways they never imagined possible. When that final truth emerges, every piece of this story will finally make sense. And when it does, the meaning behind everything they heard will become clearer than ever before. The biggest revelation is waiting in the next part.